I remixed Madonna's Love Perfusion, and it was one of the favorite things that I ever did.
You remember Janet Jackson had Nipplegate? I was at a party, all of my friends there, and I'm in a strapless dress. Caught on photos. I freak out.
There's probably small section of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in one corner, and then there was a piano all kind of positioned in the middle. Piano player didn't show up. You got to do the gig. And that's really what it is about being with artists, is the ability to collaborate and communicate.
Hi, I'm Stacey Jackson.
And I'm Roy Bassnett.
Join us for the Gen-X-Perience podcast every other week.
So if you were born between 1965 and 1980, that makes you a Gen Xer. And that being the case, that makes this podcast for you.
We are interviewing the most amazing people from all over the world in all walks of life, discussing culture, music, and politics.
The range is incredible. You're going to get to hear some wonderful stories.
So join us every other week for the Gen-X-Perience podcast. I'm Stacey Jackson.
And I'm Roy Bassnett. Welcome once again to the Gen-X-Perience podcast with me, Roy Bassnett.
And me, Stacey Jackson.
You know, interestingly, when we've been having these conversations about life in the 1980s and what it meant and some of the mistakes that we made, I was thinking about this the other day, and there's two things that came to mind. One was, you know, I mentioned that I was into the new romantic stuff. I wanted to look like Simon Le Bon. And I always remember thinking, I wanted a pair of leather trousers, right?
Oh my God, I'm picturing what's going to happen next.
Sooner you didn't. And leather trousers, they were expensive. I wasn't working at the time. I think I was just out of school. And I was indicating to my mum, could you be able to get me some leather trousers? Leather trousers, do you know how much they cost? So anyway, I comes home one day, and to my surprise, what I thought were leather trousers in the house. My mum had got me some. But they weren't leather trousers. They were actually PVC, right? Okay. And I was pleased with this look. I slapped them on, felt like Simon Le Bon. Simon Le Bon probably have a difference of opinion on that. And I remember wearing these. I never took them. I had them off all the time. My mum eventually said, you got to wash those pants. So I did. I made the mistake of putting them on the radiator. So the PVC pants were no more after that. I had loads of fashion faux pas.
You melted your pants.
I melted my pants. That was what the 80s meant to me. The 80s meant that to me. And I always remember as well, Adam Ant. Remember Adam Ant?
Of course.
Very significant when he was doing the Prince Charming stuff. He had that white thing across his nose, like a piece of white. And I thought, I've got to have that. But we had no white makeup in the house, unsurprisingly. So I used trainer whitener. And I put the trainer whitener across there. It took me a fortnight to get it off.
Oh my God. Like stuff that you used to clean your sneakers with?
No, it used to whiten them. Trainer whitener. You know, like paint, effectively.
Oh my God.
Let's use a Brillo. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with what a Brillo pad is. Like a wire.
Like one of those scrubby scouring thingies.
Yeah. It wasn't a good time for me.
Oh my God, that could have caused so many zits in the 80s.
It did. I was a zitty person, actually. Brian Adams had nothing on me.
Oh.
Anyway, what about yourself? Any fashion faux pas that you're prepared to own up to about the 80s?
Not necessarily from the 80s that I could remember.
So they're still happening then, are they?
They're happening now. I had a very big, and Leah knows this story, recent fashion faux pas. Like, you remember Janet Jackson had Nipplegate?
I don't know anything about it.
Yes, Janet Jackson was the halftime show. Yes, at the Super Bowl, and I don't know, her shirt, I don't know if it was meant to come down and then the nipple was out, but I think she had a nipple cover or something, but you know, being American, it was like, oh my God, at the Super Bowl, her nipple was out. Anyway, so a year later, I was at a party, and this party happened to have been my party. So I had all of my friends there, and I'm in a strapless dress.
Yeah.
And we've drunk a little bit, and everybody's dancing. And when you're dancing, your hands are up, and you know, so the dress, I didn't know this, because I'm a little drunk, and my hands are up, and the dress is
something's
down. Anyways, it's caught on photos. Because everyone's like taking pictures and iPhone pictures, and like the photographer's there taking pictures. And my friend loads up her photos onto Facebook of like the 50 pictures that she took of the night or whatever, without noticing that my boob was right there on show for everyone to see. And of course, I see it. And now I'm trying to get in touch with her, and she's in the States. And I see it like first thing in the morning here, because at this point I'm like in London, and she's back in the States. I freak out, and I'm like, get up. I'm calling her, get up. Of course, it's like 5 a.m. over there. And I couldn't believe it. So, but I don't know if anybody noticed and just didn't say anything.
They probably did. No, they probably did. There's no point in dressing this up, Stacey. They'll have noticed that.
That was my fashion photo. But that is not an 80s story, because actually I can't remember. I mean, in the 80s, there were a lot of fashion faux pas.
Have you got any of those pictures?
What, of the ones from the recent Nipplegate?
Nipplegate, yeah.
Well, no, I probably deleted it.
Anyway, enough about that. You know what I mean? We're going to move on to our guest, because that's the main focus of this podcast.
Yes, and he has absolutely nothing to do with Nipplegate, so I don't even know where that came from.
We don't know. Maybe he
has a Nipplegate
nipple moment. He might have had a nipple moment.
He might have had a nipple moment.
Tell us about who we're going to be speaking to today, Stacey.
Well, I am so excited about this because Craig is an incredible producer and musical director, and so talented. He plays every instrument, piano being his main bass. He's an incredible songwriter. I've written songs with him. In fact, one of our songs, Get Together, did extremely well. He's remixed some of my records, including an 80s song that I remade called Urgent. And, but really, he has traveled the world and toured with some extraordinary talent, and one of them being David Cassidy.
Oh.
Yes.
What a heartthrob that guy was.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. So he's amazing, and I think that he can add so much to this podcast, because he must have some interesting stories to tell from back in the day, and his influence of the 80s, and how that inspires him in his music today.
Time to get him on.
Time to get Craig on.
Craig, hello. Craig, I'm looking at you there and thinking, you don't look old enough to have worked with David Cassidy.
I was a little younger than he was when he was alive. He was quite an interesting person, to say the least. I didn't really have a lot of direct experience with the Partridge Family phenomenon until actually...
Good luck for you on that.
Yeah, well right. Done. Good luck, exactly. Until we did... My very first gig I did with him was at the Hammersmith in London. And,
the Apollo.
The Apollo.
The Hammersmith, yeah. Hammersmith Apollo, yeah.
Oh, thank you. He flew me over as a feature because I had just produced an album of remixes of his greatest hits. And as we're pulling up to the venue, the lines out and around the block were unbelievable. And getting on that stage and just listening to like the acclaim that, every song people were singing, every word and every utterance, people were rapt. And then he introduced me, and there was this spotlight in the middle of the stage for me to come and play the first song that we had done together. And I was just gobsmacked. It was the response and the love for him and what he does was incredible.
I can believe it, because it's one thing to be like a heartthrob now within a band, like a boy band. And yeah, obviously the adulation that goes with that. But back in the 1970s, when he was part of the Partridge Family and he was topping the charts, he really was something else to his legions of fans. He was like a messiah, wasn't he?
He always was someone that trusted his gut. I saw him turn movie deals down because he didn't feel like it was core to who he was, with big producers, big directors. Same thing with the music, whether he was picking a song or he was considering another television opportunity. He always, he didn't lead with, how much attention am I going to garner? How much money am I going to make? It was, where does this fit for me? And do I feel like I'm the right fit for this particular endeavor? And same thing with our performances. I'd never worked with an artist before who would audible. He was like a jazz musician. We had a set list, but we rarely played it. because he was like ahead of his time again. And he was almost like a DJ. He was reading the audience. And if the audience wasn't quite responding to one thing, then he would absolutely be changing it up, and we would be shifting to this or to that. Really quite a remarkable, underappreciated artist. I was really lucky to get to work with him.
Taken from us too soon as well, I might add.
For sure.
Yeah. So how did it all start for you, Craig? How did you get into this crazy business?
Well, I was in music school in Chicago, finishing up my piano and composition degree. And a friend of mine was an engineer at a studio here. It was a smaller community than New York or Los Angeles, but still very active, doing all sorts of commercial work and film work and record work. And I was working, I had a gig where I was playing from 10 to 3, sometimes 5 in the morning on Rush Street in Chicago. And I had just gone to bed. I just gotten home and my phone rang. It was 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And my friend who was the engineer said, "Get your ass up. I have an opportunity for you. Just get here as soon as you can to the studio." I said, okay, didn't tell me anything. So I got dressed. I got down there. I walk in and there's probably small section of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in one corner. And then this very elite group of session musicians in the other corner. And then there was a piano all kind of positioned in the middle. And I walked into the control room and I thought, maybe I'd be assisting on as, in some fashion. He said, "No, get behind the piano. Piano player didn't show up. You got to do the gig." And literally I walked up to the piano and there was a lead sheet about 6 pages yay wide. Everyone's staring at me. I was by far the youngest person in the room. I had probably 2 or 3 minutes at the most. The producer came out, talked me through what we were going to be doing. And in that era, it was direct to tape. And it was 30, 40 musicians going direct to tape. If you screwed it up, everybody heard. Now, sure, I could go back and redo it. But the concept is everybody plays the chart down, you get a second run through, and that's it, because it was so expensive to be in the studio, and it was so expensive to be in the studio with all of those musicians at the same time. Needless to say, I did not have a diaper on, and it was not a good look, but I endured. I got through it. Apparently, I did a very good job. And from that moment on, the doors opened for me, because I was just lucky enough to be able to be in that position, have that learning experience, but realized I had a real passion for the studio. And I really enjoyed the challenge of coming in and making something happen and being under, that kind of pressure, but also, to see what I could do and what I couldn't do. And it just grew. And more producers started calling me and being put in these different situations. At night, I work on an R&B record. During the day, I do a commercial. Then I do a film score. And it just kind of grew from there.
How many times, Stacey, you'd probably be able to relate to this, that, when we talk about people, you think, oh, they must be so driven, they're so successful, these people, they must have been banging on the doors. And sometimes that's not what it's all about. It's just being in the right place at the right time.
A lot of times, absolutely. A lot of times it's like the door opens and you're like, okay, I'm going to go in. And like, if you have the opportunity to do it, do it, You never know where that's going to take you. Craig's a perfect example of that. It's like he was at the right place at the right time, but he was also extraordinarily talented.
But he's taking advantage, as I say. It's not quite, okay, the door's open, but it's down to you to go in there and you've got to kind of shake it up a bit.
100%.
That's
100%. When the door opens and you go in, you can't screw it up. You got to go in and you got to give it your all.
You can't be afraid to fail, though. That's part of it.
Exactly.
And we all have kids, and I look at my kids and they're just so afraid because everything on social media is so perfect and everything looks so perfect. I'm like, no, to get to that point, you have to be willing to fail. I mean, I had bad sessions that I had to overcome. I've had bad gigs. I've had written bad songs. We all have bad moments, and it's not what you do when you're having success. It's that when you find something that knocks you down, you get right back up again and get back up on the horse and keep going.
It's hard because the kids these days don't see that. Everything is so immediate, the immediate gratification. Like they think they could roll out of university and suddenly become, Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe it does happen for certain people, but not most people.
Right.
You have to work, you have to take chances. And so, I remember being in the 80s and studying a lot of production stuff. I mean, obviously I was on the other side of the production, but I had to learn a little bit about studio work. And I mean, it was reel to reel. I was doing splicing on old time, tapes and stuff. I mean,
oh, right on.
The technology has changed so dramatically since, in the 40 years, right? And I would suspect someone who actually, it was in that industry like you for so long from that time and having to adapt to how things have changed and all the new technology and now even newer technology and AI and all this stuff that's coming out. How are you adapting to all that? And what of the new stuff do you love versus hate? And what do you miss from the old stuff? Like for me, I want to say the obvious, which is like vinyl, right? And like hearing things how it was, I mean, I would say meant to be heard. But when I say that, the kids don't understand what I say. So, but you understand. So what are the differences for you, significant differences being in the studio that you notice, you miss and that you love?
I've always been a technologist. And I think I got that from my father, who had got one of the first computer degrees that you could get back in the 50s. And so I've always been intrigued by the progression and what you can do with these opportunities. I look at them as opportunities, and it's like cooking. I love to cook. Okay, well, I open my refrigerator and there's a lot of shit in the refrigerator, but in my mind's eye, I'm going to make this today. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this. I'm going to create it the way that I do. And I visualize in my head what I want to do and where I want to go before I do that. And then I use the tools at my disposal that will get me there. And I view them all as instruments. So I think we're, AI, for example, let's just go right there. There's some incredible resources. I've played with some of them. I've used some of them. They're just tools. So for someone such as myself, who I have, spent a lifetime studying music and doing the things that I've done, I don't lean on it or need it to write my music
do your
for
job.
me.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
There will be people that... Right. There will be people that will do that. And it would be easy for me to, if I was, in that place to, cast aspersions on that process. But that's going to be their creative process. It's sort of like when Andy Warhol came along and people said, that's just a fucking Campbell soup can. Well, when you look at what he did, and I encourage everyone to go, total sidebar, to the Andy Warhol Museum, and I think it's in Pittsburgh. It's astonishing. I mean, and when you see the work that he did in person, it's like, okay, I get it. And he changed the paradigm for how people perceive certain things. It's the same thing with any of the technology, going back to the 80s, when we were going from tape to digital audio tape, there was this hullabaloo. It's cold, it's O's and it's ones. But the fact that we could store things, instead of having a 24-inch reel, which the barrier for entry was so massive, you had to, just buying the tape was an endeavor, and then buying the studio time. And as it progressed, things came down, things became more miniaturized, you could get more work done, you could do more experimentation. So, the cost to benefit ratio was part of how that shifted. And I think we just need to embrace whatever comes along. That doesn't mean vinyl goes away. I still listen to my records. Some of my mixes come out on vinyl, which is awesome. There are still people that, the younger generation are discovering it. I think there's room for all of it. And I think you use the right tool for the right application. And all that is what's really worked for me. And especially...
I love technology. Sorry to interrupt there. I love technology.
Yeah,
and I like the idea, people talk about vinyl, but the bottom line is, vinyl years ago, when it's becoming worn and you can hear all that, it detracts from it. So as far as I'm concerned, the pure signal is what it's all about. I'll tell you what, you probably appreciate this actually, Craig. The technological advance is probably the shortest lived career of any piece of technology that I can think of that changed music has got to be the mini disc.
Well, it's sort of like the difference between Betamax and VHS. on the video side. There were different competing formats. The marketplace determined what people were going to grab to and weren't going to grab to, because I think the thinking was, digital cassette. But at that point, people had already moved on to CDs. And then obviously, I think CDs were, even if you look at it in the span of compared to vinyl, were pretty short-lived once things became digitized and were online. And as soon as that happened, I knew that was it. It was over. All of that was going to go away. And I was
need
surprised.
to talk to you about, because you had mentioned your mixes on vinyl and stuff. And so I have a quick question. So how has the remix culture from the 80s paved the way for today's dance hits? Right? Has any of those mixes inspired what's going on now in particular? Like, can you reflect on some of that from how we grew up back in the day to interpret into your remixes? I know that you do when you're working with me, but that be specifically because that's the project that we have. But is it something that you pull up on naturally, or do you, is it, there are some like iconic remixes that you've done, out there. But do you ever say, I think I'm going to remix, a U2 song with a little bit of an 80s kind of vibe because, right, they were an 80s band. So like, what's that influence? Do you take that with you when you're remixing? Like, how does that work?
As far as 80s influence, if you think about it, dance records go all the way back to, the big band era, Cab Calloway to, Stan Kenton to Duke Ellington. And then if you fast forward, disco records, which is really what started, modern pop music, influenced modern pop music from the 80s, in particular late 70s, early 80s, was all live recordings. They would go in the studio, they have a bunch of people play, and they'd be arranged. And then from that point on, when early house music came along and they were using drum machines, they slid away from that. But then when sampling came back along in the 90s, it was like, okay, remember my layer analogy or cooking analogy, people started mixing and matching. So because the 80s had influenced music so much in terms of dance music in particular, whether it was the pop dance music coming out of the UK or disco coming out of New York or house coming out of Chicago, all of that, it became a language, right? And there were different dialects to the language. So as you progressed into the 90s and into the early O's, that music was baked into the culture, right? So, you had the 4 on the floor. You had certain types of things that happen in the rhythm. A disco record would have strings. So then maybe now you're using synthesized strings instead of real strings because, having real strings, again, was an economic thing that was afforded to you by a label. And now that whole ecosystem had changed. So when I get a project and someone says to me, so I remixed Summer of Love for U2, I was not specifically asked, hey, we'd like to have some of that influence in there. But yes, to your point, in the back of my mind, there's certain types of gestures, certain types of things that you do with chords, certain types of things you can do with sounds that infer some of that flavor. And I absolutely draw, because that was such a rich period of pop music. And I use those influences not only with you, Stacey, but, some of the other work that I've done with some of the other artists, because that was the time, that was when I started, really was for me, I really got heavily into the remix side of things in the mid and late 90s.
Yeah. Let me just pick up on that as well. Some of the people that you have actually remixed songs of, artists, Lady Gaga, U2, who you mentioned there, and Katy Perry, to name but 3. I think, in a day and age where it's become easier to remix, certainly at an amateur level. You can get like a Novation Launchpad or something and add bits here and there and all of that kind of stuff. But somebody like yourself who's schooled in the practice, I would imagine there's a bit more duty of care to not just basically just swamp it with a drum machine, replace the bass line. What is there a process?
He respects the artistry.
That's what I'm getting at. That's exactly it.
He does. That's why I love working with Craig, because we had this conversation when we first met. A remixer is like, sometimes I don't love what they do with my records as an artist, but when you have your song remixed, it's for different genres. It's for different clubs. You know, you have just different sounds and so you have to just be like, okay, this is their art. They're taking and they're making it something else. Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. Is there an element of like, you know, from Craig's point of view, of you having to get inside the mind of the artist in order to make that remix
I think
successful?
so. That's why I love working with Craig. But I mean, he can tell you. I mean, I always am like, just make sure it stays on key. Like, you're not going to have anything discordant, and that the keys, you know, exactly how it should be. And like, you know, because a lot of remixers, like you say, they just put a different beat to
it's
it.
Easy
And
to
it's
do,
like,
and people
right. And then,
think, that's easy, isn't it?
But you're singing up there and the beat's over there, and it doesn't work like what he does. And Craig will tell you. And
So
we're busy talking.
what is your problem? What's your MO then, if you like, Craig?
I'm a record producer and I'm a television and film composer as well. So when I approach a remix, I still approach it as I would if I were producing a record from scratch. Because to me, it's okay, how do I tell the story of the song? How do I make the artist sound the best that they can be? Not my version of it, but okay, we want it to live in this world. How do I bring this to make it the best that it can be? So to Stacey's point, DJ culture is interesting. I've learned a lot from it because they will take disparate elements from different places and create, sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes, to her point, it's discordant. And if you don't understand what's going on there theoretically in terms of the music theory and what chords go with what, you know, melodies and what scales and keys that you're in, that's where you can get, you know, some of what we refer to as the rub. I take the vocal, I lay it out, I just literally sit there with the piano and I reharmonize it to make it feel right and different, but still within the framework of the structure of what the song is doing melodically. And then I put it in the world that it needs to be in. So if it's got to be a indie disco feel, great. If we're doing big room house, great. If we're doing melodic house or tech house, and those things are determined by, you know, to Stacey's point, you know, what are the parameters for the project? But I don't really separate remixing and producing because I approach it again from the ground up as an original production. I just happen to already have the vocal, and that's been my style. And that's where I've hung my hat, because there's plenty of other people doing that other thing. And to my ear, not as many people going, wow, I could have heard this. This could have been the original. I mean, that's my goal. And the ultimate compliment I felt like I got was recently on something that I did in the past. I remixed Madonna's Love Profusion, and she included it on the package of mixes that she re-released just a year ago. And it was one of the favorite things that I ever did. And she is pretty ruthless with her sound and her brand, that I got that one across her and that she loved it enough to reissue it was, you know, and that was again
brilliant. You met the great.
One of those moments where I decided to take, you know, I took that approach. And the work, you know, since we're here talking about Stacey's work, what I've loved working about with her is she gets it. I can say to her, hey, I think we're going to try this. We're going to try that. She'll give me some notes. We'll go back and forth, but it's all about the music. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, all the songs that we've done together have been at the top of, you know, what my fans have loved. The feedback's been phenomenal. And then when we had that one song that we wrote, Get Together, which we weren't really thinking much about it other than, hey, we're going to do this song, we're going to put it out. And to get that response just tells me that, you know, when we get together and do the work and the way that we communicate with each other, and that's really what it is about being with artists, is the ability to collaborate and communicate and tell a great story.
When you have such an iconic person as Madonna, as you mentioned there, for them to listen to what you're saying is such a compliment. Just before we move on to our final feature that we're going to do here, the one thing I'd like to ask, because obviously, as you mentioned there, you love the tech. When the synthesizer came in, everyone was thinking, well, that's the end of music. You can't go any further with that because instruments are going to be replaced by electronics. And of course, when the medium by which you transport music, when the iTunes came in and the iPod and all of that kind of stuff, and how we listen to music became different. That was something else that was game-changing. Is there anywhere left for music to evolve to in terms of technology?
Absolutely. I mean, you're seeing really interesting tech in the way that we control those sounds and the way that we can shape those sounds. So I don't know if you've seen any of this technology, but you can buy a ring now that's Bluetooth that controls the shape of your sound. So as you move it, it tracks the sound. You can use hand gestures. You can do all sorts of things with that. A company called Rolly just created their version of it where it's this little structure that comes up. And as you're playing, it's almost like you're conducting. And it's another way of helping shape and move the sound.
You're painting the sound.
Yeah,
yes,
tailor it to your own needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So
I owe you a vocal, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
I say nothing.
I think I owe you a vocal. You say nothing. You're good that you say nothing. Because
I say nothing.
Because if I was in your place, I'd hit me. Okay, I know. I'm sorry. I had so many other things on my plate, but I'm getting to it. Oh my God! Now that I think about it, I'm
well.
so
And
bad.
we have more songs to write.
Yes, we do. No, we do actually. Okay,
right
so
now we have questions to answer.
Questions.
Someday we have to get on the stage together because that would be really fun.
Yes, that will be. Yes, that would be. When I'm in the States or when you're over here, we will plan something and we will go and perform our asses off.
Always.
Okay.
Always got.
Okay. Explain to Craig what's going to happen now.
Okay, I'm just going to throw some questions to you. Now, it's an 80s trivia game, card game. And there's anything from music to movies to culture, fashion, all that stuff. So we're going to ask 4 questions and you have to get as many right as possible. So the first question, I'm just going to pull random from the top of the deck.
Okay, pull random from the deck. Let's see if I know anything.
Oh, you'll totally get this one. Okay, which sugar-free soft drink was introduced in 1982? Sugar-free soft drink. Yeah.
Diet Coke.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
I was overthinking that one. Right. Well,
what were you thinking?
I was thinking of Coke, but I thought not in 1981, and then I realised there's a whole lot of sugar in there, so it couldn't have been that. Maybe I was thinking Perrier water or something like that. I was way short of the mark.
Did you guys have Tab over there? Because Tab was the precursor. TAB?
Yeah, Tab was TAB. I remember Tab being in Canada. We had it.
Okay.
But I don't know I don't think it came here.
Anyway, so 4 questions what we're going to ask, and nobody's managed to get 4 out of 4. So you're on track for it, Craig. I've got a feeling this will be a walk in the park for you. 1981 is where we're going. What was the first music video to be played on MTV?
I know. Come on. I totally know this. You totally know this. The lyric must be even in the lyric is in the song, right?
I could give you a bit of a clue in that the singer, he wore glasses too. I thought we were going to get a 4
video.
out of 4.
The first video.
And I would say as well that this would be quite ironic that this song, and it's not Alanis Morissette, by the way, it's quite ironic that this song would have been played on music television, a new concept.
Wasn't Thomas Dolby, was it?
No. And I love Thomas Dolby, by the way. Hyperactive, my favorite song.
Isn't it Dire Straits? I Want My MT? No.
No. Not the first song ever played. Are we giving up on this one? Or are you going to pursue it further?
Well, you said someone with, because I was thinking about Blinded Me with Science, because that was one of the early videos that was, but glasses?
Probably the biggest song in 1981 as well. And Laura knows.
Michael must have been Michael Jackson, I would think.
Producer Laura knows.
I originally was going to go Michael Jackson. Yeah, but no.
Okay.
I feel like I'm supposed to.
Me too. I don't know the answer.
I'm going to give you a clue here then. You could say that there is murder involved here.
There's murder involved. But the glasses is what's throwing me. I'm trying to think of a big artist that
this wasn't a big art. I wouldn't say this is a big song, not necessarily a big artist. In fact, I can't think of any other song that this guy went on to do, to be honest.
So it's a one-hit wonder who has glasses.
It's a one-hit wonder.
I'm going to have to call time on this. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Call time.
Not coming.
Who is it?
Not coming.
The Buggles video killed the radio star.
Video killed the radio star.
My God, we should have totally known that.
I was looking for the title because I knew I wouldn't know the band because I remember. Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, right. Well, there's still,
You got
you
me
can
on
still
that
get a third one. Right?
Yeah. Oh, my turn. Okay.
Yeah, your turn.
Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde were characters in which popular 80s arcade game?
And Laura, producer Laura is waving her hands in the air because she knows
Pac-Man,
it.
he got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we stick with gaming of a
I
kind.
love Pac-Man.
We stick with gaming of a kind for our final question here because we have one here in the studio, a Rubik Cube. It's there. From which country does the iconic 80s toy, the Rubik Cube, originate?
I want to say Japan.
That would be a good guess. Anybody else? Leah? Producer, production? You know? Rubik Cube.
I want to say Rubik would have been
Scandinavian. Think of the name of Dr. Rubik.
Yeah,
where would he be from?
Either Germany, Austria, Scandinavia, maybe Austria.
Oh, okay. If you're going that way.
Rubik.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to give you another go at this one then, Craig. Go on. What are you saying?
Scandinavia, maybe? Sweden? Rubik.
Laura, are you pitching in on this one?
No. Wouldn't have been so
Rubik.
big in the States if it was Russian.
I'll give you a clue. This is how you feel when you've not eaten.
Oh, Hungary.
Hungry. Okay.
But I mean, I was on the right track with the Rubik and the Austria.
You were. I was going to say an Eastern Bloc country, but okay.
It wouldn't have been so big in America if that was the case during the 80s, right?
Right.
Technically.
Right.
Wow.
Craig, once again, marvelous guest. Wonderful to speak to you. What are you working on at the moment?
Well, at the moment, when I get Stacey's vocal, we're finishing something fantastic up for her. I'm about to start scoring a small series for a network here in the States. It's going to be a 5-part miniseries. I'm not supposed to talk about it because we're in negotiation, but I'm excited about it because it's going to be really fun to score. And then I have a couple of artists that I've been developing and their releases are going to be imminent. And then I also, with my partner, Ralphie Rosario, and we've done work with Stacey, who's an amazing remixer and artist in his own right. He's a legend in the house world. We have a project called The Shamanic, and we have a new single that's going to be coming out first quarter in 25.
And if people want to track your progress, how can they do that, Craig?
Craig J Snider music.com.
Maybe you might be tempted to mix Video Killed a Radio Star after that, just to kind of remind you.
Hey, man, listen, that would be really fun.
That's a really good idea.
That song.
Yeah.
Put my vocal on that one. We got a new remix.
Brilliant.
You know what?
You've got it. You got him. He's like, that's a good one.
I noticed just Stacey, as well. Go on.
You should do it.
Okay, that'll go on my list.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Just a quickie just before we go as well. It looks like James Brown's in the background there. You a big fan?
Big fan. I've got my James Brown doll here. I'll bring him to the camera. The batteries are dead, but this is a collector's item. He sings I Feel Good.
Oh, when the batteries are not dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
He's not feeling too good at the moment.
And he shakes.
And I've got Ray Charles back there too. So these guys, I mean, I cannot tell you how much James Brown influenced. You know, when I first heard James Brown, I lost my mind. And then obviously James Brown and Ray Charles were huge influences on me earlier on. And coming up in Chicago, you know, playing with all the artists that I got to play with, and it was very R&B forward music. To hear it live and to be a part of it live is incredible. But that's why I have my little dolls to remind me of where I come from.
Brilliant stuff. Craig, thank you so much for spending some time with us here.
Thank you.
On the Gen-X-Perience podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful stuff.
Fun.
When are you going to deliver the goods on this vocal that's required of you, then, Stacey?
in all truth, you know, I have this audiobook coming out for my book, and it took quite some time for me to narrate it. And I had to wait for all of that to happen, and that has now happened. We've just integrated the musical soundtrack into the audiobook. So I was meant to go back into the studio last week, but we pushed it to next week. So I'm just going to do it then. But yeah, it's just a timing thing. There's only one of me and I got a lot of shit going on. as we know. So, but it's on my list of things I need to do.
I've got to say congratulations to you, by the way.
Thank you for what?
You managed to go a complete episode without using the F word. Did really well today. That's remarkable, that, you know.
That's fucking fabulous.
Yeah, there you go. I thought you'd turned a corner. Such is life. Once again,
thank you. You give me permission to swear, I'm going to swear.
Yeah, and you took it. You took it. So once again, thank you very much indeed for watching the Gen-X-Perience podcast. We'll be back with more idle banter and a wonderful guest next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on our various social media channels. We would appreciate that. Till next time, thank you. Bye. Thanks very much for checking out the Gen-X-Perience podcast. Please do like and subscribe. We look forward to your comments, and if you could give us a 5-star review, that would be really appreciated.